My name is Briella Weaver. I'm a holistic health practitioner, and I also teach classes to educate people on how to heal themselves because I do believe that we are our own best doctors because we know ourselves best. Nobody else is ever inside of our body and our life. So we really do have the upper hand and the power on that, and we can become educated enough, like a true doctor should be, to be able to solve our own issues as well. And the basis of it really starts with the nervous system, and we'll get into why. But if you're on this call, I'm assuming that you have researched nervous system a little bit, understand the importance of it, and probably struggle with some stress and the anxiety and all of the dysregulated nervous system issues. So we're going to talk about those things as well. But first off, let's talk about what is the nervous system. This is going to be a mediocre class, like medium level class of nervous system regulation, not super beginner, not super advanced, but we're getting into some nitty-gritty stuff. But let's review with the basics of what it is, and I know that will still surprise you. So the nervous system, it is a massive electrical circuit. If you haven't heard of it that way before, our nervous system is electric. We are electromagnetic beings, so we are electrical and magnetic. And our nervous system gives us that ability to be electrical. For reference, the brain alone contains 86 billion neurons. There is all of these electrical signals happening between neurons all the time in the body and at an extreme amount too. So I want to put that in perspective. So the brain alone, not including any of the peripheral nerves, the spinal cord, the autonomic nervous system, it's 86 billion neurons, which means we are sending out that big number on the screen, 1 trillion something or more signals per second. That's just for the brain. So think about how many signals we're sending per second from everything inside of the body. And that is what makes it important that we have to regulate the nervous system and control the nervous system, because it is sending so many signals. Every single communication from the gut to the brain, from the hormone cascade, from hunger signals to light signaling, all of your signals in your body that keep your body functioning, they have to go through the nervous system. So the nervous system can get overwhelmed very, very easily just from autonomic processes. So let's look at the electrical output that the nervous system gives. 70 to 100 watts of electricity is in resting mode. Our bodies, we put out that much just in resting mode, and that's going to be higher if we are active. So a standard old incandescent light bulb, that puts out 60 to 100 watts. That your body is powering a light bulb at rest. That's how much electrical energy is pulsing through your system. A phone charger, that is 5 to 20 watts. Your body is sending out, that's the equivalent of sending out 5 to 15 phone chargers running at once. Your body is powering that. So it is truly an insanely powerful and capable body. And really, our bodies were the foundational science that was studied behind creating technology and electricity, actually. They got all of their ideas and their statistics and how they run things from the human body, which is really, really cool the way God designed that. But why is the nervous system important? I'm sure you've seen me talking about this on my page or through other classes, but the nervous system is the basis piece for all health issues, especially chronic health issues, because if your nervous system is not regulated, you cannot heal. And we'll look at why. The nervous system, you can see that at the top, it's branched off into multiple different areas. If you've already studied this is not new to you, but we're going to be focusing at the very bottom, under the autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is a mode of the nervous system called rest or digest. Sympathetic is a mode called fight or flight. So what happens in these modes? Parasympathetic is when I think I have a slide for this. Yeah. Sympathetic is the mode when you're activated. This is your built-in survival mode. We need this. It's a good thing. But in excess all of the time, which is where I see a lot of people in this state all of the time, this begins to break down nervous tissue. This begins to send wrong signals or not send signals at all because the body is overwhelmed and stressed. So things that cause you to be insympathetic is stress, fear, exercise, again, not a bad thing, emergency situations, and high alert focus. So that's even your job sometimes. Now, parasympathetic, on the other hand, is the other mode of the nervous system. This is the only state that your body can repair in. Your body is not capable of healing itself while it's in sympathetic, but it has to be in parasympathetic. This is the calm, recovery, repair. So things that activate the parasympathetic are rest, sleep, when you're not in a rush, when you're relaxing, when you feel safe. So that brings in the whole emotional component to whether you're in sympathetic or parasympathetic. So during the sympathetic activation, you're pumping out cortisol, you're pumping out adrenaline, and this gives you the energy to get things done, right? We need that. Again, not a bad mode to be in, but in excess, it will start breaking down the body. Now, in contrast, if you're in parasympathetic all the time, this is what you would classify as an extremely lazy or maybe depressed person because they are not able to get anything done and they just want to lay around all day. Or they're just way too relaxed in a sense. You know, those types of people feel like you can't get anything done. But the main importance here is that we know our bodies from holistic health are a self-healing unit that knows how to repair itself. That's its God-given design. It just has to be given what it needs to do that, and what it needs is to be in parasympathetic. So that is why it is so crucial for us to be in parasympathetic, especially at night, especially in the evenings when we're relaxing, because our bodies will start repairing and healing then. So this is what I just explained. Parasympathetic, this is when your body's natural repair systems kick on and start fixing everything. So let's look at the real issue of stress. 70% of all chronic disease is caused by stress. This is a PubMed statistic, which shows you how much the nervous system, if people got their nervous systems under control and regulated, 70% of all chronic disease would be solved. Now, on an acute term, 75 to 90% of all doctors' visits are for stress-related ailments and complaints. So you think about people going for like their vertigo issues or their heart palpitations or their crazy blood pressure, blood sugar issues. All of those are due to stress that has happened either in their moment or their life or just has accumulated in the body. So the nervous system, it has to be healed before any other healing can occur. And you guys are at the right place, working on the right thing, avoiding a lot of other avenues of wasting time if you just come back to the nervous system, and that whole cascade will just fix itself. So what is a regulated nervous system? Because there is a lot of misunderstanding about this, I would say, in the nervous system healing health space. A lot of people think that nervous system regulation is the ability to always be calm and centered and relaxed. And that's just not realistic. And that's not the point at all, because we can't always be like that. We have family, we have jobs, we have life. Even take ourselves out of this modernized world and back to primal days, how we were originally created. People were hunting and building and running away from animals and fleeing from forest fires and all of these things that required people to have activation. They had a lot on their plate. So a regulated nervous system really is one that is able to effectively respond to a situation when needed and then return to a normal state in a few minutes or hours, whenever reasonable, depends on the situation. The problem is now that everybody is activated by these situations all the time, or they have just too many situations that keep them activated, and then they are never ever able to return back to that normal state. So that is the goal with nervous system regulation. I will be giving you guys some tools to be able to regulate your nervous system, and it will train your nervous system how to get out of sympathetic and into parasympathetic, because the more you work out a muscle, right, the more it grows. So the more you practice nervous system regulation to switch into parasympathetic, the more your body will naturally be able to switch into parasympathetic. So, for example, if you're somebody who gets into an argument, is not able to recover from it for the rest of the day or even days, that's a pretty good indication you're in fight or flight from an emotional standpoint. Or if a traumatic situation happened, and in a reasonable traumatic situation, and your body still holds on to that tension and fear for days after, the nervous system is clearly dysregulated. So the goal of the nervous system, of healing the nervous system, is your body's ability to be able to repair, to be able to regulate without you having to do it. That is the ultimate goal. So let's talk about the top factors that dysregulate, so you're aware of what is going to dysregulate your nervous system. Then we'll get into some more healing things. One, being out of tune with self, and this means suppressing emotions, overriding basic biological needs. So that can look like you're somebody who has a regimented schedule of working out 7 days a week. Your body's tired, it's screaming for rest, you're sore, but you're still like, no, I need to work out, I need to go to the gym. That's just one example. Overriding the body's needs. That is called being out of tune with yourself. Suppressing emotions. That is, something happens, you're like, no, it's fine. I don't want to upset their feelings. I don't want to deal with this. It's really not that big of a deal. And you dismiss the emotions that you're feeling. Again, that's going to make you out of tune with yourself. Also, we just live in a very external world. There's a lot of things to focus on. And so most people are constantly in tune with other people's emotions, other people's feelings, external things that are going on. You ever hear the people that are like, I just can't sit with my thoughts for like a minute, or I always have to be busy and doing something because I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to crash out if I have a moment of silence. That's being very out of tune with the self. And in the long run, those are going to have really, really hard consequences physically, mentally, and health-wise. So number 2 is taking on others' needs, problems, energy, people-pleasing. I see this being a huge, huge issue with people that will constantly just give and give and give out of an empty bucket. You need to be filled up before you can give out. I think even the Bible teaches a very important philosophy on this when Jesus says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. You don't know how to love your neighbor if you don't know how to love yourself. And that goes back to number 1 with being in tune with self. So really, you can only give out of the overflow. You can already go where you've already been. You can only love others if you love yourself. And so this is a huge one, putting up boundaries, learning not to compromise your entire life for somebody else to a certain extent, right? Another one is EMFs from technology, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. So I explained earlier how our nervous systems, they are an electrical circuit. Guess what else is electrical? Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and technology. That electrical circuit is sending wavelengths at a very, very faster, higher, stronger rate than our bodies are. Our bodies sit around like 72 megahertz, and technology is off the charts above that. And it's stronger. So what happens when we're in constant close contact with all of these stimulants? They are changing the wavelengths in our body, our nervous system, and so that changes the firing of the neurons. So instead of a pulsing neuron like this, how it should be, now the neuron's going like this. And this is why you would feel overstimulated, stressed out, anxious, all of those things. Very important to guard and block yourself from these things. I think I talk about some of it later of how to protect yourself from these things, but basics is turn your Wi-Fi off at night. Don't keep your phone on you during the day, at least 6 feet away. During night, never plug your phone in close to your head. Just distance from technology is the best thing you can do. The next is constant stimulation. So we may think to get more done in a day, we're going to put on a podcast while we are doing this task. Or, if we're driving, we have to play music. Something is always has to be stimulating for us. And that puts our nervous systems in overdrive. So it can be simple practices like, oh, you're doing the dishes or cleaning the house. Maybe do that in silence instead. You're driving. Maybe pick a day of the week to do that in silence instead. A huge one is being in a rush constantly and doing everything fast. This applies to essentially everything because when you are in a rush, your body doesn't know the difference between you doing the dishes quickly or running away from a tiger because you're doing the same exact motions. You're running around. Or that can be mentally too. If your mind's constantly running all of the time, you're in sympathetic overdrive. So, practical ways, slow down things. Instead of running across the kitchen to put your dish away, walk across the kitchen. Just in being mindful to do things slower. Number 6, having no consistency on basic needs such as food, love, and rest. The nervous system thrives off of consistency in every aspect, mainly human needs. So, this is things like eating meals every single day at the same time. That's very helpful to your nervous system. Resting, which waking up, going to sleep at the same time every day, is very beneficial to the nervous system. Anything that you can do that gives your body consistency in a day helps the nervous system. So this one we'll talk about what this means later, but having no breaks while working, and when you're working, you're in sympathetic, right? So if you can give yourself like a 2-minute break every 2 hours to just reset, it takes you out of parasympathetic, kind of resets the system. By the end of the day, you don't feel as exhausted because you have reset yourself throughout the day. This is great for an overwhelming job, an overstimulating job, or just life in general. 2-minute lizard walk essentially just means a 2-minute break of your choice, but it includes looking at a horizon far, and we'll talk about that in a second. Blue light after dark. This is screens. This is your overhead fluorescent lights. After dark, our bodies are designed for it to be dark. There should be no other stimulants except for fire because that's the only primal thing that we've had. So blue light is the most effective wavelength at suppressing melatonin. And isolated blue light by itself, which is our screens and fluorescent lights, they ignite cortisol. So not only are you ruining your sleep for the night because you're suppressing melatonin, you're activating cortisol so that's your stress hormone. You're activating the stress hormone with that. So after it gets dark, after sunset, all lights go off in the home except for lamps, candles, turn screens to red mode or get off of them. And the last one is caffeine. Y'all aren't going to like me for this, but whenever you consume caffeine, it immediately activates sympathetic for multiple hours afterwards until it runs out of the system. So if you're somebody who drinks caffeine every day or multiple times a day, you're never giving your system a rest to switch into parasympathetic. Oops. So let's talk about emotional roots of disease. This is huge because a lot of people, I notice, they don't have so much physical issues with being nervous system dysregulated. They're like, I've done the resting and I've done the breaks and I've slowed down my schedule, but my mind is going all of the time. Or I have build up resentment or anger that comes out all the time. And this is what emotionally keeps you in sympathetic and not able to get out of it. So what puts you in sympathetic emotionally? Fear, trauma, worrying. You can see all of these lower scale things on here. What puts you in parasympathetic is feeling safe in your body, feeling safe in your environment, peace, contentness, being present in the moment, not thinking about the future, backwards, those types of things. And what I want to explain here with this emotional scale, this might be new for you, but if it is, this is super cool. So emotions, every single emotion has a certain frequency. And by what frequency I mean is wavelength. So you think about brain waves like the delta waves, the theta waves, that is a frequency. So every single emotion has a certain frequency with it. Now, on the same page, our body is a certain frequency. I said earlier that our body stays at around 70 megahertz all of the time. So that's what these are. That's what these are at right here. And so the frequency of the emotion will interact with the frequency of your body and actually change it. And whichever one is lower, higher, will take the forward of it. As Louise Hay says, she was somebody who healed her cancer from, I think it was detoxing. It was a whole mental thing for her. She used a few herbal remedies, but she healed her cancer through mindset and emotional work and that type of thing. And she said every physical ailment and disease has a root of unresolved or negative emotional patterns. And I can testify that this is very true because every chronic condition, there is always, always, always an underlying emotional pattern connected to it, whether that's from trauma, whether that's a learned experience. But you have to understand that everything physical is just crystallized energy not moving anymore because our entire world is energy in motion. And I think I talk about that. Yeah, I talk about that next. So let's get into that. Albert Einstein says, everything is energy and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality that you want and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy. This is physics. It really is basic physics to understand that all physical matter is simply crystallized energy. Everything is in motion around us. Everything physical that you see is just the energy standing still and creating that piece of matter. And we can see that in this physics equation, which is E equals m times c squared. So this is the amount of energy times the mass of an object times the speed of light squared. So that gives you a basis for that. So the health of your body, what I'm getting at here is the health of your body is based on its frequency. Low frequency means you're unhealthy. Cancer starts popping up at 25 megahertz. Candida, Epstein-Barr, that pops up around 50 megahertz. Below 20, the body starts dying. So it really is a game of physics at this point of whatever frequency you're going to be at. And this is why emotions are so important because every single emotion is a frequency. If you look at the diagram here, if you have shame from a trauma you had since you were 5 years old, that is lowering the health, the frequency of your body for the rest of your life and keeping you at a low state of health. It is insane how emotions affect the body. So high frequency is healthy, low frequency equals disease. And it's even in the word. Emotion comes from the Greek word energy in motion. That's what it means. Emotion is literally energy in motion. So all emotions are good. There's no such thing as really a bad emotion. It only is bad once it's stored in the body, which means it's not in motion anymore. So, you're feeling anger. It's not wrong to feel anger. The Bible says, in your anger, do not sin. It doesn't say anger is sin. So it's completely fine to feel all of these emotions, feel grief, feel fear. That's very normal. But it gets to cause disease when we trap it and don't process it. And that takes me all the way back to the beginning when I was talking about being in tune with yourself so that you can process your emotions. This is going to help you understand even more about there it is, about how our bodies are a basis of frequency. So every single thing in your body, every organ, every tissue, every cell has its own frequency, and it has to stay that frequency to be healthy. And everything's balanced, everything is, in tune, in harmony. Dysfunction occurs. This is the root of all disease. Dysfunction occurs when that frequency gets out of tune. So when there is cancer occurring in the kidneys, where did that start? That had to start with the frequency of the kidneys being out of tune, whether that was from an emotion or a physical object, toxin being stored in there. Either way, what happened at the foundation of physics was that the frequency was out of tune. And so This is an example of how emotions can get stored in these organs and then change the frequency of that organ and then create these diseases in these organs. So with every organ, there is a certain emotion attached to it. So you can see heart and small intestine. The main emotions attached with this are despair, lack of connection, what some people would say a broken heart, if your heart has been shattered from something, mental restlessness, depression, anxiety. Whereas the spleen and the stomach and the pancreas, these are associated with the emotions worrying, dwelling on the same thing, codependency, excessive thinking. The lungs and the skin and the large intestine, this is associated with grief, sadness, shame, disappointment. And if you really think about how these emotions affect you when you feel them, like think about when you feel grief and sadness. Where do you feel that? In your lungs, because you cry. Or think about when you are worrying. You feel that pit in your stomach, right? Well, that's because that's associated with the stomach. You have your heart shattered, lack of connection, despair. Well, that's linked to the heart. And then the kidneys, the bladder, this is fear, insecure, weak willpower, easily controlled. And then the eyes and the liver, the gallbladder, this is anger, resentment, frustration, all of those things. And what's very, very interesting, I can see this in my own practice. When I put someone through a liver detox, for example, usually it's associated with menopause or like PMDD or PMS. If their liver is clogged and dirty, during our detox, they'll notice a ton of either increase in anger that's releasing or their anger symptoms will go away. It is wild to see the emotional change people get from detoxing that organ. So this brings me to how do we fix the emotions? Obviously, there is work that needs to be done, but one way we can move that is with flower essences. If you haven't ever heard of flower essences, they were developed by Dr. Bach in the 1930s, and they are flower remedies, the same way herbs would work, but they're flowers. And so flowers, they have a very high and positive frequency. We talked about how that impacts us before. But they can actually transform negative states of fear, uncertainty, despair, all of the chronic negative emotions into higher states of energy, more positive, higher states of, if you saw on that emotion frequency scale, it will bring it up to those higher ones. So what they are is energetic fields of flowers are infused into sun-charged water, and then it creates these remedies. I've had some really great results using these with my clients as well, so I can attest that these work well. For example, I gave one to my dad because he is a very, y'all can probably relate to this with some husbands or men that you know, but they just love to work, they love to overwork, they're obsessed with their work, and they don't give themselves enough of a break. And I was seeing this pattern, and I could see he was getting burnout because he just had so many expectations and responsibilities, but he would never say that he was burnout or tired. But I gave him a remedy with, I think it was oak flower or the oak tree, because they can be some other trees and plants too. And what that is supposed to do is revive and strengthen what is lost, the strength or the reviveness that has been lost in the body. So I gave that to him, and he took it one night before bed. He said he was up all night because what it did was it restored that vitality and that energy from that burnout that he'd been feeling from so long. The flower essence restored that back to him and balanced that frequency again. So he was up all night because he felt new energy again. That's just one example of how they work. There's so many more as well. There's some for that work on anger and that type of thing. So one client told me her family is like, who are you? You're a whole different person. You're not as angry anymore. So these really do work to help move emotions. But we cannot, it's supposed to go one by one, but we cannot talk about regulating the nervous systems if we don't talk about words, because The power of words, this just dates all the way back to ancient history. I mean, the Bible teaches this fundamentally, the power of words for health and life. So no matter what your belief is, whether you regard the Bible as a cool historical text or the Word of God, both ways, it still has power and works. Every single word has a frequency, and your cells respond to that. And we see that because in Hebrews, it says, by faith we understand that the universe was created by the Word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible. Have you ever noticed, if you read Genesis, God speaks the earth into existence. God speaks everything into existence. So words have extreme power. They physically do speak things into existence. That is a supernatural thing that God can do, but it also is a very it's based off of physics as well for us humans. This is really cool. It's Proverbs 16:24. Gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul, healing to the bones. If you didn't know, the way a honeycomb is made is by the bees buzzing. So you hear that buzzing that the bees are always sounding like. That is a certain frequency, and frequency creates shapes. It creates, because the energy field moves around. So the physical structure of a honeycomb is actually made, that octagon shape, it's made from the buzzing of the bees because of their frequency. So in the same way that gracious words are like a honeycomb, gracious words can literally build and construct things. Sweet words to the soul heal the bones, and that's physical. Like if you speak nice, gracious words to me, it physically starts healing your bones. Somebody else is trying to join again. There we go. Okay. You guys can still see my screen, right? Okay, awesome. Another one. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it and indulge in it will eat its fruit and bear the consequences of their words. Death and life are physically in the power of the tongue, because words physically tear down the body, physically destroy vitality of the body. And this is not a figurative way of speaking. It's very literal in the Bible. Another one, a happy heart is good medicine, and a joyful mind causes healing, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. Again, a happy heart and a joyful mind physically causes healing to happen in the body. A broken heart, broken spirit, despair, stuck in shame, guilt, physically dries up the bones. And this is maybe a whole other conversation, but when you're stressed, you start pulling minerals out of your bones, specifically calcium. And so if you stay in a state of a broken spirit long enough, your body will physically start pulling calcium and other minerals out of your bones, because that's where your minerals are stored. So again, this is not figurative. This is very literal. The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Again, power of words. So just wanted to give you a little background on how extremely crucial and important words are. And we have the science now to confirm what God has been teaching us all along, because obviously he made our bodies, he knows how it works. But I want you guys to watch what physically happens with words. Let's see if this video works for y'all. Hold on. I have to share a different screen. Okay. Can y'all see this snowflake screen? Let me play this.
This next series of photographs are the work of Japanese researcher Mr. Masaru Emoto from his book, The Message from Water. Mr. Emoto's work provides factual evidence that human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, ideas, and music affect the molecular structure of water. Please remember that water comprises over 70% of a mature human body and covers the same amount on our planet. Water is the very source of all life. This photo shows the beautifully formed geometric design of the Yushi Spring water. This next photo is from the Shimanto River, the last clean spring in Japan. Notice the extraordinary geometric forms. The fact that the molecular structure of water can be affected by our consciousness, our intent, and our sounds is extremely important. This photo is from the Mount Cook Glacier in New Zealand. Mr. Emoto has been visually documenting these molecular changes in water by means of his photographic techniques. He freezes droplets of water, then examines them under a dark field microscope that has photographic capabilities. His work clearly demonstrates the diversity of the molecular structure of water and the effects of the environment upon the structure of the water. This photo is from the fountain in Lourdes, France. This photo is from contaminated water from the Yodo River in Japan. In this photo, we can compare the contaminated water with clean stream water. Look at the difference. Mr. Emoto decided to see what effects music would have upon the structure of water. He placed distilled water between two speakers for several hours while playing different music and then photographing the crystals that formed after the water was frozen. This photo is of water being exposed to Beethoven's Pastorale. This photo is the effect of Bach's Air for the G-string on the water. This photo is water exposed to Chopin's Farewell Song. This next photo is water being exposed and affected to music that was designed for healing. This photo is of water being exposed to the Kawachi folk dance. This photo shows the effect of heavy metal music upon the water. Here now we can compare the effects of healing versus heavy metal music and what happens to the water molecules. Mr. Emoto decided to see how thoughts and words affected the formation of untreated distilled water crystals by typing words onto paper and then taping this paper onto glass bottles overnight. This photo shows the effects of the words, "Thank you." This next photo shows the effects of the words love and appreciation. This photo shows the effects of the words, "You make me sick, I will kill you." And here we can compare the effects of thank you with the "You make me sick, I will kill you." Very, very different geometric forms being incurred through the intention. Now this photo
from that video, how much words physically impact the human body. All right here you can see the crystal structures that formed from good words, bad words, and speaking them, or even writing them. As humans, we are made of 70% water. That should make you think a little bit how much words are affecting the body, because all of these tests were done on water. Every single time we speak or someone speaks to us, it is restructuring the water in our bodies. And so our body, it has its own consciousness. Every single cell responds to a word, the vibration of a word, the frequency of a word, the wavelength of a word, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. And how you speak to your body determines how it feels. And this really makes me think it's important to look at the mental aspect of chronic disease, autoimmune in particular, really any chronic disease that people deal with, because after so many years of being in a illness or disease, you start accepting that disease and you start speaking that over your body. I mean, you say, I have autoimmune, I have this condition, and you're telling your body, you're reminding your body every single time you say that, that you are sick, you are ill. And so all it knows to do is respond to that and structure things in your body to be physically ill. But what if we started speaking, you are healthy, or you are made whole again, or you are at peace? All of these things. It's not gaslighting ourselves, it's physically restructuring our biology. So that is something that's hugely, largely important to healing. Oh yeah, I talked about it a little bit here. One of the most uplifting things you can do for a sick or stressed body is to say positive affirmations over to it. Tell your body you love it. Tell yourself you love yourself. Even if you're not at the perfect, healthy place that you want to be, you can still love yourself and want more for your body. And but so are thoughts. So every single cell in your body responds to thought. That again, answer from different meditations, speaking things, mental rewirings, all of those things. And her message is for healing that we have to learn how to love ourselves, every single part of it. Have to learn how to love ourselves. And how many of us say, I love myself, myself, and I don't like this, and I like that. But make thoughts, so because thoughts are measured certain frequencies. Well, positive thought is measured by plus megahertz, and then one negative thought is measured by minus 12 megahertz. So again, if you're thinking about that scale earlier and what I was talking about, how our body is around roughly 72 megahertz, give or take, for positive thoughts, you're constantly adding plus 10 megahertz. You're keeping that frequency up. If you are constantly negative thoughts, that time. So if you're interested in the emotional disease associated with conditions or the way that works, I recommend You Can Heal Your Life. That's a book by Louise Hay, the one who's done this. People have to do this for. But even the list online, you can look it up, and it'll say like a medical condition, and it'll say the emotions that are behind it that has been proven to be true. So it'll have like cancer or anxiety or PMS or fatty liver disease, and have all the emotions behind it. Super cool looking. Now, look more practicals of what are we going to do to have all the time. And a huge practical exercise. This is how to get to like one get in tune with our body, because we live in such an external demanding world. This is what you're going to sit with yourself and identify the top 3 negative phrases that you have in life or if you grew up someone dumb and do well in school, what has stuck with you and what still is the motive of some of your thinking and decisions. Write them down and write down phrases with opposite of this. Then you're going to look into a mirror and say these affirmations to yourself every morning. And at the end, you have to say I love you to yourself. That's part of Louise's teaching, but that's also just getting in tune with yourself. We only love others as much as we love ourselves. If we love ourselves, at a huge part. If to, I get it at first too, and it's because I was tuned with my body and didn't these things and like to acknowledge it. And I think we'll have some that we could acknowledge better. So because again, nervous system off of repetition, and so something for so long, the nervous system requires this doesn't have to rewire, and you'll know It has started to rewire, and things start coming true, or you start where your actions start shifting. I think this is like more doing your hand on your heart, doing your hand on your heart. You hold it down, stand there. So you'll just try to be in your taking note of how your body is feeling. So right, cold, like that. What do I feel at my legs? What do I think about my legs? Oh, I felt my thigh wrap my legs. Out of that, again, it's still an important part of your being. The goal is not to fix anything, though, it's just to be present and examine your body. Because the more that you become in tune with your body, even if you're not fixing anything, the more you acknowledge it, your body starts feeling safe. I'm breaking up. Everybody else hear me? Breaking up for everyone. Megan, I can see your face. Am I breaking up?
Yeah, it's skipping bad.
Oh no. Okay, good to know. Hold on. Okay, back to regulating techniques. We went over the body scan, get in tune with your body. That's going to be huge. EFT tapping. If you haven't ever heard of this, this is a method of tapping acupuncture points on the body to release emotions and trauma that has been stored, but also rewire new emotions into it. You can look it up on YouTube, EFT tapping. It's the same protocol pretty much for everything because it was developed by the same person. Everyone follows the same thing. And you can really customize it. It's a series of tapping different points on the body, saying different things, but this really helps you release emotions. I've noticed that anytime I do it, or people I know do it, or people I tell to do it, they will have some type of emotional release in like 5 to 10 minutes of doing it, either crying, laughing, process something. It can be very, very powerful. Deep breathing, this is a huge one. This transfers you into parasympathetic. So if you have never been taught how to properly breathe before, it's inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth like through a little straw. And the exhale is parasympathetic. The inhale is sympathetic activating. So you want to exhale longer than you inhale. So it'll look something like this. That's a good example of how it should look. Do that for like 5 to 10 minutes, especially if you have a hard time falling asleep. This is what we were talking about earlier, the 2-minute lizard walk work break. So before I was saying how every about 2 hours while you're working to take a 2-minute break to help reset you into parasympathetic and not make you so chronically exhausted or stressed at the end of a day or overwhelmed. So lizard walk is really just the name because I got it from this one lady who said that when she takes this break, she goes outside to this little pond outside of her front door, and there's like lizards walking around, and she watches the lizards. But the reason why it's important to maybe go outside or open a window or look far is because when you're looking far, it activates something in your brain. Your optic nerve is literally brain tissue. And so the only part of your brain that is exposed is your eye. When you're focusing on something far, it activates parasympathetic. When you're focusing on something close, it activates sympathetic. So if you're staring at a screen all day, you're in sympathetic automatically because you're focused and your brain is staring at something. If you look out a window, you're automatically switching into parasympathetic because you're shifting your brain tissue to gaze at something. So take a 2-minute break, but make sure it's doing something like gazing far out. That'll reset you. Humming. Humming is stimulating your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is your central parasympathetic nerve. And specifically humming at a low tone is what activates it best. So hum your favorite song at a low tone, hum in general, while you're doing things, while you're driving, doing the dishes. Another one is shaking it out. This is all about releasing emotions. You know, we can talk about nervous system regulation, like the deep breathing, the tapping, and other things, but the deeper thing is letting go of emotions and negative thought patterns that do not serve you. And we talked about that earlier, but you have to get it out somehow. You can process it, you can journal, but sometimes it needs to be physically taken out of the body because frequencies of emotions get stored in the organs, stored in the tissues physically. You need to get it out physically. So shaking it out, that's what that's for. This is expelling the energy inside of you off because, again, everything is energy. It's just circulating, crystallized, moving. Shaking it out gets things off of you. And also, if you notice that your physical body gets weighed down, fatigued because of your overburdened sympathetic nervous system, shaking out that physical stress will leave you a lot lighter too, feeling in the end. Some other nervous system nourishment beyond physical, practical things. Clean electrolytes, so sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, those neuron electrical signals, they can only fire with adequate minerals. If you don't have the correct amount of minerals, you can do all the regulating you want, but it doesn't even have the materials that it needs to do that. Clean electrolytes that can in salts in your water, a clean electrolyte brand. Herbal, nervine, and adaptogens. This is going to be, there's a difference between these two. So nervines is something for visit and them, and is going to is your body's ability to practice. So job, if you need something to calm you down physically or you breaking again. Okay. Herbal nervines are going to be skullcap, passion flower, blue vervain, lemon balm. Adaptogens are going to be the holy basil, ashwagandha, rhodiola, and eleuthero. Grounding, this is so overrated, underestimated for the nervous system because the nervous system is electrical, and the only other thing that's going to restore electricity to our body is outside the ground. The earth is an extremely strong electromagnetic frequency, and it will completely regenerate ours. It's like plugging the phone into the charger. Putting your feet on the ground restores electricity to your circuit. So that's going to be huge for a regulated nervous system. Prayer and repeating scripture over your body, because we know how much words have a power over your life. And this is from, I want you guys to watch this. This is a Bible verse that it's the Lord's Prayer. It's the Lord's Prayer, and it is showing what it does on a mental level. Let me present my other screen. Okay.
Meditating on the Lord's Prayer, and just wanted to share with you that most people pray it without realizing it's also a blueprint for a healthier, more resilient brain.
That
share with you.
Through. And now it's not letting me replay it. So this is Dr. Amen. He talks a lot about things like this, neuroscientist, very, very educated, but also brings the Bible into it. So if you're curious in checking that out, go to Dr. Amen. Let me finish my presentation though. Okay. Grandpa on porch time. I named it this because the act of sitting on your porch, examining out over the horizon is huge for your nervous system. Take time to do that and just sit there. Consistency and routine. I said before, the nervous system thrives on consistency. So if you can get a routine of things that are consistent, that would be great. And zipping energy field meridians. So this is what I was talking about earlier. There's acupuncture points that run through the body. And this is very physics. It's very physical, but essentially there are these two main energy lines that run through the body that control whether you are open to being influenced by the world other people's feel, because you can feel if you're in proximity with somebody who is really negative, gossips about other people, just not great people to be around them. They drain you. But if you can set yourself up, you can be your energetic field, which is an extension of your physical body, can be created more of a boundary. Now, this is definitely more of advanced what I'm talking about. So if you haven't heard this before, you don't get it, that's okay. I wanted to incorporate some basic stuff and more advanced stuff, but essentially your central meridian starts at your pelvic bone, goes up to your bottom lip. Your governing meridian starts at your tailbone, goes to your top lip. And what you do is you physically pull them up like this with your hands. And that helps seals off your field if you are somebody that is very highly affected from other people. It helps with that. So in summary, we talked about the nervous system is the foundation of health, because in order for your body to go into its self-healing repair mode, it has to be in parasympathetic. Nervous system regulation does not mean calm. It means emotionally flexible, able to recover. Emotions do have a root in disease. What you speak and think matters because of the power of words and thoughts. Choose one regulating technique that I listed from that page and start with that. You don't overwhelm yourself, because the last thing somebody's overwhelmed nervous system needs is a to-do list of things to do. So pick one thing that really just resonated with you or you want to try out and start doing that. And then from Louise Hay, she would say, love yourself, because again, that is the whole gospel. That is, you love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that's what our beings are made for. Our beings are made for love.